Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Martinez and this is Art 200 Cuesta, and my presentation is on Andy Warhol and his bibliography. More than 20 years after his death, Andy Warhol remains one of the most influential figures in contemporary art and culture. Warhol's life and work inspires creative thinkers worldwide. Thanks to his enduring imagination, his cultural celebrity, and ongoing research of dedication scholars, his impact as an artist is far deeper and greater. "Everyone will be famous for 15 minutes," he quoted. His curiosity resulted in an enormous body of work that spanned every available medium, and most importantly, it contributed to the collapse of boundaries between high and low culture. Andy Warhol was an American artist who was a leading figure in the visual art movement, known as pop art. His work explores the relationship between artistic expression, celebrity culture, and advertisement that flourished by the 1960s. Born August 6, 1928, Pittsburgh, and died February 22, 1987, Manhattan, New York City, he grew up during the Great Depression in the urban surroundings of a smoky industrial city. At an early age, he showed a wonderful talent for drawing. Due to an illness at the age of 6, he was confined to bed. His mother and brother would entertain him for hours by showing him how to draw, trace, and print images. Andy loved to draw throughout his childhood. Throughout the 1950s, he was a prolific illustration, fashion, aids, books, records, albums, and many other promotional items. He also worked to create innovations for advertisement for I. Miller, a popular shoe company. The advertising world of the 1950s groomed him well for his ventures in the art world of the 1960s. Andy relocated to New York almost immediately after completing his degree in 1949. He started his career in advertising and magazine illustration. His ink drawings for various shoe advertisements gathered a lot of attention within the New York advertising circle. In 1960, Warhol began to make his first painting. They were based on comic strips and the likes of Dick Tracy, Popeye, Superman, and 2 Coca-Cola bottles. In 1961, using the Dick Tracy comic strip, he designed a window display for Lord & Taylor at the time. Major art galleries around the nation began noticing his work in 1962. Warhol made paintings for dollar bills and Campbell soup cans, and his work was included in an important exhibit of pop art, the New Realist, held at St. Janis Gallery, New York, in November of this year. Eleanor Ward showed his paintings at a Stable Gallery, and the exhibit became a sensation. Another interesting point in his life was in 1969, Warhol also began a magazine called Interview, which grew in circulation and required much of his time. Warhol became a part of New York's jet set and loved attending gatherings with celebrities. He documented such events with his camera and tape recorder during this time. Warhol also stated that his most famous quote was, "In the future, everybody will be in the world famous for 15 minutes." After working as an illustrator for more than a decade, Andy ventured into filmmaking in 1963. In a span of 5 years, he made around 60 films. Noteworthy works amongst these were Sleep, Blowjob, Empire, and Eat. One of the first paintings I'm going to talk about that Andy Warhol did of Marilyn Monroe is the Dispatchy. It's made of 2 silver canvases on which the artist silk screened a photograph of Marilyn Monroe 50 times. At first, the glance the work, which explicitly refers a form of Christian painting in its title, invites us to worship the legendary icon whose images Warhol plucked from popular culture and immortalized as art. The second painting I'm going to talk about is Warhol's iconic series of Campbell soup cans. Between the Marilyn Monroe and the Campbell soup painting, these two were my favorite paintings that Andy created. What made these works significant was Warhol's co-opting of universal recognition imagery such as Campbell Soup's can, Mickey Mouse of the face of Marilyn Monroe, despite it as a mass product item but within a fine art context. In that sense, Warhol wasn't just empathizing popular imagery, but rather providing comparity on how people had come to perceive these things in modern times. He bought and sold such with one glance. This early series was hand-painted, but Warhol switched to screen printing shortly afterwards, favoring the mechanical techniques of this mass culture imaging. 100 canvases of Campbell soup cans made up of his first solo exhibit at the Furious Gallery in Los Angeles, and put Warhol on the art world map almost immediately after, forever changing the face of content of modern art. Warhol's other famous pop paintings, despite Coca-Cola bottles, vacuum cleaners, and hamburgers, he also painted celebrity portraits in vivid and garnished colors. His most famous subjects included Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, Mick Jagger, and Moe Zedong. As these portraits gained fame and notoriety, Warhol began to receive hundreds of commissions for portraits from society and celebrities. His portraits, 8 Levis, eventually resold for $100 million in 2008, making it one of the most valuable paintings in world history. The growing reputation of Andy Warhol grabbed the eyes of music label RCA Records. Andy and a few other artists were hired by the music label to design the covers of the various albums produced by it. He is one of the very few artists to drop the silkscreen printmaking process by the 1950 decade. In 1968, however, Warhol's thriving career almost ended. He was shot by Valerie Solanas, an aspiring writer and radical feminist. On June 3rd, Warhol was seriously wounded by his attack. Solan had appeared in one of Warhol's films and was reportedly upset with him over his refusal to use a script that she had written. After the shooting, Solana was arrested and pled guilty to the crime. Warhol spent weeks in New York's hospital recovering from his injuries. Later on in his career, in the 1970s, was a sober decade for Andy Warhol, since his work didn't make noise that way it did in the previous decades. However, he managed to earn many influential patrons during this period. Few of these famous names included John Lennon, Diana Ross, Mick Jagger, and the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza. In 1973, he created a portrait of the Chinese Communist leader Mao Zedong, which went on to become a world-renowned piece of art. 6 years later, Andy, along with close friend Stuart Pibart, founded the New York Academy of Art. Andy was hired by automobile giant BMW in 1973 to paint the supercar BMW. Andy was the best choice the company had made, since he decided to paint on a practice model rather than directly experiment on the full-scale product. In 1980, Andy exhibited 10 of his portraits at the Jewish Museum in New York. The collection was named the Jewish Genius. While in Milan attending the opening of the exhibit of the last super paintings, Warhol complained of severe pain in his right side. After delaying a hospital visit, he was eventually convinced by his doctors to check into a New York hospital for gallbladder surgery. On February 22, 1987, while in recovery from his routine operation, Andy Warhol died. Following a burial in Pittsburgh, thousands of mourners paid their respect at a memorial service held in Manhattan's St. Patrick's Cathedral. Andy Warhol was an artist, filmmaker, photographer, author, editor, and cultural icon. In the years since his death, his importance has grown to such proportions he is now regarded as one of the most major artists of the 20th century. Thank you for listening to my presentation today on Andy Warhol and his biography of his life. I hope you enjoyed that today. Bye. he showed a wonderful talent for drawing. Due to an illness at the age of 6, he was confined to bed. His mother and brothers would entertain him for hours by showing him how to draw, trace, and print images. Andy loved to draw throughout his childhood. Throughout the 1950s, he was a prolific in illustrating fashion ads, books, records, albums, and many other promotional items. He also worked to create imitation advertisement for Miller, a popular shoe company that advertised the world of the 1950s, groomed him well for his venture in the art world of the 60s. Andy relocated to New York City almost immediately after completing his degree in 1949. He started his career in advertising magazine illustration. His ink drawings for various shoe advertisements garnered a lot of attention within the New York advertisement circle. In 1960, Warhol began to make his first paintings. They were based on comic strips and the likes of Dick Tracy, Popeye, Superman, and 2 Coca-Cola bottles. In 1961, using the Dick Tracy comic strip, he designed a window of display for Lord and Taylor. At the time, major art galleries around the nation began noticing his work. In 1962, Warhol made paintings of dollar bills and Campbell soup cans, and his work was included in an important exhibit of pop art. The New Realist held Cindy James Gallery, New York, in November of this year. Eleanor Ward showed his painting at Stable Gallery exhibit began desensitization. Other interesting point in his life was in 1969. Warhol also began a magazine called Interview, which grew in a circulation and required much of his time. Warhol became a part of New York's jet set and loved attending gatherings with celebrities. He documented such events with his camera and tape recorder. During this time, Warhol also started his most famous quote, which was, "In the future, everybody will be famous for 15 minutes." After working as an illustration for more than a decade, Andy ventured into filmmaking in 1963. In a span of 5 years, he made around 60 films. Noteworthy works amongst these are Sleep, Blowjob, Empire, and Eve. My first painting I'm going to talk about Andy Warhol did of Marilyn Monroe. This picture is made of 2 silver canvases on which the artist silk-screened a photograph of Marilyn Monroe 50 times at first glance. The work, which explicitly references a form of Christian painting in its title, invites us to worship the legendary icon whose image Warhol plucked from popular culture and immortalized as art. The second painting I'm going to talk about is Warhol's iconic series of Campbell soup cans. Between the Marilyn Monroe and Campbell soup painting, these 2 were my favorite paintings that Andy created. What made these works significant was Warhol's co-opting of universal recognizable image, such as Campbell soup can, Mickey Mouse of the face of Marilyn Monroe, and despite it as mass-produced items, but within a fine art context in that sense. Warhol wasn't just emphasizing popular imagery, but rather providing commentary in how people had to come perceive these things at modern times. He bought and sold as such with the glance. The early series was hand-painted, but Warhol switched to screen painting shortly afterwards. Favored the mechanical technique for his mass culture imaging. 100 canvases of Campbell soup cans made up his first solo exhibition at the Beers Gallery in Los Angeles and put Warhol on Warhol Art World Map, almost immediately forever changing the face and context of modern art. Warhol's other famous pop paintings, despite Coca-Cola bottles, vacuum cleaners, and hamburgers, he also painted portraits in vivid garnish colors. His most famous subjects included Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, Mick Jagger. As these portraits gained fame and notoriety, Warhol began to receive hundreds of commissions for portraits from society and celebrity. His portraits, 8 Elvises, eventually resold for $100